like the way I get them to meditate is, so I say, you know, how long can you live without food? And, you know, people would say, you know, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that. And I said, well, what about water? How long can you live without water? You know, and people would say, 3 days, maybe 4. I said, yeah, well, what about oxygen? How long can you live without oxygen? And, you know, 3 minutes, 4 minutes. Yeah. So I'm going to teach you a meditation that focuses on your breathing, very similar to what Tim just shared. That got past all their, you know, corporate, I'm not a touchy-feely guy. I want you to learn to breathe so you're completely present in the moment. So that's what I started to do. But how it all happened was I was at a meeting called, it was the Save the World organization or something like that, terms of intention. And I said something, I raised my hand and made a comment. And after the meeting, this woman comes up to me and she said, well, do you know the people at Sandalani? And I said, no, I don't know them. She says, you need to call them. They need somebody like you on their team. So I said, okay. So are you with Sandalani? She said, no, but I have a friend who is. And so she gave me the name of that person. And I called them, and lo and behold, they were looking for somebody like me. And that started a 30-year career. They were already doing adapting insight learning to the boardroom. They were already doing what I intended to do myself. And I can't help but think that my deep intention, my deep commitment to converting this insight learning process to the boardroom somehow drew these people to me. And, you know, it's been my life's work, helping people, business people, go deeper and understand some of the principles of leadership and of presence. And we did this for about 30 years. We had different module sections that we did: accountability, teamwork, mutual support. And my favorite one was Be Here Now, which is where I would teach them to meditate and teach them to be in the present. And so we decided to do a survey over all of our clients for, you know, going back about 20 years. What was your favorite module? And we listed them all, and, you know, they got a chance to check off. Guess what won? Be Here Now. Be Here Now. All these executives said this was the most impactful part of the process. So my intention came true. Somebody was already working on it. And somehow they found me. I wasn't looking. I just went to a meeting. I didn't say anything about this. I just was part of the conversation. And somehow my intention manifest in the heart of this woman who knew somebody at Sandalani, set up an introduction. So I think if you look in your life, I think I asked you in the notes to find a time when you had a real clear, powerful intention and it actually came true. So I'd like to hear if someone has a similar story to mine, maybe just one or two people. I'd like to hear your story about your intention, the nature of it, and what happened as a result. So if anyone has a story they'd like to share, just you know, raise your hand and I'll pick on you. Anita, unmute yourself. You have to unmute yourself.
Always trying to be on top of that, and we always miss, don't we? Every time it's like, oh, shoot. This brings forth, many years ago, I heard a speaker, and they said, think about your future as a great glowing light that is magnetically drawing you forth into your wonderful future. I mean, you cannot not have this wonderful future. And I thought, yeah, right. And I started practicing it. And so when I would meditate, there would be this glowing, wonderful future. I had no idea what it would be, but there it was. And I have to tell you right now, I think I did it. I feel like I am living right now. Only I know, of course, it may not be anybody else's idea of a glowing, wonderful future, but boy, do I feel like it's happened. I mean, and I hate to say it, but it's part of this whole global, huge, great change. And to be here in it and part of it, I think I set my intention and I made it. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for that story. That was great. Yeah. Who else? Anyone else have a?
Samuel?
Samuel.
Yes.
Where is he?
I remember, they ask you a lot of times when you're trying to figure out what you want to do with your life, and think back about what brought you a lot of joy, what really touched you. And I go back to the 10th grade, and I was class president, and I organized this Wild West dance. And I did most of the work. And it gave me tremendous satisfaction because everybody had a good time. It was really positive, and it just carried me for a long time. So in my later years, I started to organize many, many events over the years. Transformational Friends of Santa Monica. I had weekly gatherings in my home every Wednesday night for a year and a half. And even my current Sacred Friends community, where I send out email blasts and I bring people together and announce important events and add my commentary. And it's just been an engagement that started back, as I remember, in the 10th grade, where I had this great burst of enthusiasm, and it's manifested in a whole way of life.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there one more before I?
Michael has his hand up.
Yeah. Well, back in the early parts of my career, I was working a lot about teaching people new technologies that could transform their life. And I sort of had this vision that I would look to be a college professor doing, just doing all sorts of communication sorts of things to doing life-changing kind of things. And at the time I was working for Xerox or IBM doing these projects, and it seemed very limited what I was doing. But over the course of 10 years, all these different things manifested. I started getting book contracts. I started doing all these different things. And it all sort of fell into place. And I can't say that I thought about it like, as you're presenting it, as intention that was just sort of manifesting. I just thought about it, well, I guess, I was connected to all the right people and things were just sort of falling into place. But one way or the other, the dream came true.
Yeah.
It all happened, however you want to call it.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Michael. Yeah. So what I want to talk about, thank you for the sharing. I'm sure many of you have had these experiences. And how does it work? So how many read the article that I posted as part of this? Just raise your hands because I don't want to be too redundant. Okay, a lot of you did. All right, great. Let's see. Here it is. So the question is, how does this work? It clearly works. But if I'm going to screen share, can I screen share?
Yeah, you should be able to.
Okay. Okay. That's not where I wanted to start, but that's okay. So so in leadership, you know, you have the observer and the observed and the invisible connections between them that cause communication, whether it's one or two or three people. And science, some years ago, which I'm going to share with you in a minute, pointed out there is this invisible natural intelligence that links things in a self-referencing web of relationships. Right? Here's where it comes from. John Bell showed that the world according to quantum mechanics is really non-local. It's a non-local event, a non-local at the level of individual events. So what actually happens, I'm trying to make this a little smaller so I can read it all. Can everyone see the whole quote
We
here?
can see it. We can see it fine, Paul.
Oh, all right. So this is what they determined is there's this web of interrelationships that persists and develops. And it's characterized by a high degree of correlation and imposed correlations like this, which are ubiquitous since all physical systems have momentum and energy and relationship with other systems. This constitutes a continuous formative constraints on the evolution of the universe. Okay, so imagine that every thought you have, every action you take has an instantaneous, at a distance, effect. Now, scientists like to prove these things. So one of the scientists had noticed that in an electron, the paired electrons spin in opposite directions. So if there's a pair of paired electrons, then you change the spin of one, the other changes instantly to spin in the converse. And they found ways using little small electrical charges, you know, to make these changes. Then they thought, well, okay, I wonder if this works at a distance. I wonder if we can separate the electrons, or at least separate one of them. What happens? So they managed to do it. I don't know how they did it. I just read the paper, but they did it. And in 1984, 82, Alan Aspect conducted this experiment to prove that elementary particles are affected by connections that exist across and outside of time and space. And of course, you know the answer. When they changed one with no passage of time, the other electron changed rotation instantly. So what it proves the theory, is there's some intelligence that transcends time and space. And it's at work between all things at any distance. Now, if you read some ancient philosophy, you'll find that the great teachers have been teaching this for thousands of years. But it took, for the skeptical, a scientific experiment to prove that it is true. So one of the things I do with my CEOs is I explain this to them. And sometimes when I'm in a private conversation with my CEOs, they'll have something negative to say about one of their people. And I'll remind them that though they're not hearing you say this, this attitude you have, this energy you have, is affecting them. And intention, it's not really a thought. So we talk, in our meditations, we try to eliminate our thoughts. But intention is something between a thought and an actual energy. Intention is like, it's like an energy, right? And if you imagine the world, the observer and the observed, which includes everyone in the world, right? In this relational web of energies, everything that occurs just expands. And there's no limit. There's no limit to this. It just goes on and on. So we talk about having an intention for love, having an intention for kindness. And that intention, if enough people hold it, will emanate throughout the conscious world. Now, so we say, well, geez, that's great. You know, we can just change the world. Well, one of the problems is most people, as Tim pointed out in his meditation, in terms of the stillness part of his meditation, what'd you call it, Tim? The state you get in? I've forgotten already.
It has to do with the precious, subtle mind.
Right. That's where you see when you're in that state, that's where insight comes from. And of course, most people are lost in their thoughts. They believe their thoughts are important. They believe their thoughts are real, when in fact, our thoughts are like the finger pointing at the moon, right? So I write a poem, we do a meditation, and we're using words, right? But those words are pointing at something beyond the words, beyond the words. And the Buddha, or one of the Buddhist scholars, said, don't mistake the finger pointing at the moon for the moon itself, right? Because that is not, they also said, Buddhism is the raft to get across to the other side of the river. It is not the other side. Now, these are important observations and intentions that people carry. Now, I have another slide I want to show you. Let's see here. I'll put this away. Ooh, what's that? Uh-oh. An advertisement from Zoom, for God's sakes. Okay. All right, now I'm having a, what in the hell? Let's see, I'll stop the share and start it again.
Yeah, that's good.
The only way. Okay, here we go. I apologize. I'm usually very good at this. Okay. I'm going to try one more time.
You know, Zoom has made a lot of changes in the last 7 days. Paul, I think that we're experiencing part of the Zoom hiccups. I don't think it's you.
Desktop. Let's see. Let's try that. No.
By the way, that glitch was beautiful work of art. I think you could have incorporated it right into the talk.
Well said, Samuel.
I thought so too. I thought, wow, that really exemplifies what you're talking about. You know, it's like, how did he do that?
Can you see this?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, that is working. So we have a group. Some people are members of the group that are in the Mastery Circle, Michael and a few others, called Access 11. And our purpose is to make the world a better place for our children and generations to come. And so this slide is about intention, the effect of intention. And many have written about this. The power of commitment fueled with intention. William Hutchinson Murray, 1913 to 1996, from his book 1951 entitled The Scottish Himalayan Expedition, who led the successful ascent of 5 of the 7 Himalayan mountains. And he has a quote, and there's some debate whose quote this is. One of my professor friends says, no, it's not Goethe, it's him, it's the mountain climber. Mm-hmm. But regardless, here's the quote. And I know many of you have heard this quote before, but it merits reading again. Until one is committed, there is hesitancy, chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness concerning all acts of initiative and creation. There is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans, that the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. This is important. Then providence moves too. I've experienced that. In all sorts of things occur to help one that would have otherwise not have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from the decision rising in one's favor, all manner of unseen events, meetings, and material assistance, which no one could have dreamed would have come their way. Whatever you can do or dream, you can begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Begin it now. This is so true in my experience. When I wanted to convert LifeSpring's Insight Learning into a business process that helps leaders grow, my intention was so strong and so clear that this woman, stranger, never met her, she came up to me and directed me to the people who were already doing this, even though I didn't mention this. Again, all manner, a whole stream of events issues from the decision rising in one's favor, all manner of unforeseen events, meetings, and material assistance, which no one could have dreamed would have come their way.
Paul, could I make a comment?
Yes, please.
Here, that's so powerful. I really love this. And to me, that's really where synchronicity comes in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'd like to hear other comments and thoughts on this. So I can't see, so if somebody else would call on them, because I'm screen sharing, I can't see who has their hand up. Just unmute yourself and speak.
I'd like to share. I'd like to share that the experience I had about becoming a scuba diving when I had fear of water was just a miracle. I was with someone who says, you either follow my instructions or you die. I got in the water very scared. The guy was in someplace in Tahiti. And I was so scared of the teacher or so I went down. And then he says, now when I came up, he says, now you're gonna rescue me. You're gonna pull me from here to a mile away where the boat is. Otherwise, you won't get certified. And I couldn't say yes or no. I said to myself, I have to close my eyes and go in that direction, pull this guy who was 200 pounds. And I did it. And I had a picture of my scuba diving first day with my curly hair. And I've never seen myself so happy. So that I can say that you just rise to the occasion without any thoughts. Just go for it. My experience.
Thank you. That's great. Great
I
story.
would like to make a comment.
Yes.
Paulo Coelho, the Brazilian writer, wrote The Alchemist. And,
Yes.
and The Alchemist says, if you want something intensely, the whole universe will conspire for you to get it. And when I read these words you just presented, reminded me of those words.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful.
Yeah.
Paul, I have something to say.
Yes.
It's Linda. A long time ago, I used to be part of a 500-mile Native American spiritual marathon, which I did for many years. And I remember one time we were in a car. You're really tired because you're running all day. Not a lot, but you're running. And one of the women in our car had an asthma attack and she did not have her inhaler. And I said, where is it? And she said, it's on the top of that hill. And I got out and I was like, I don't know who did this, but I ran up that hill, got that, came back.
Wow. Wow. How cool. Powerful. Yeah. And you were intent on getting up that hill and saving her life, right?
I wasn't in my body. I was in somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. Great story. Anyone else? Love to hear some more. Comment.
I've noticed that you may really want something, but initially, in many cases, the universe tests you. How much do you really want this? And it throws up barriers to you getting what you want. And you have to have such a strong conviction that you're willing to do whatever it takes, no matter what the barrier is. And then ultimately the universe opens up and says, okay, I'll support you now.
There you go. Thank you, Samuel. Very, very good. Appreciate that.
I have a question.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask you and Bonnie, why do you think that when you have an intention that things just work out?
Well, looking at Bell's theorem that I showed you earlier, everything is connected. Everything is connected by a force beyond time and space. So there's an instant connection when you put out the energy of intention. It's instant. And it goes out for those who would hear it. Now, some people are lost in their thoughts, they're not going to hear it. But it's there. It's proven by science that we are all, not only we, but everything is connected by this force that's beyond time and space. Beyond time and space. So I believe it because I've experienced it. I think Bonnie as well. I think our relationship was a deep intention that we had. We were both in LifeSpring, sitting next to each other, telling our life story. And at that moment, I think both of our intentions met. So,
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
so I believe it because I've experienced it. And I also believe it because of the science that has pointed out that all things are connected.
Hey, Paul, Jonathan has his hand up.
Okay, thank you.
A very quick one. I was with, I think, Detroit, and we were playing the Minnesota Vikings, and a pass was thrown to me, and I wasn't going to be able to catch it, and the defensive back was going to get it. And all of a sudden I had this intention, no. And I went and I tackled him, I knocked him out, and he didn't get it. And it was like a very scary moment of, I had that intention. It just came to me, he's not going to get it. and then the results of that was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Hey, Paul,
very-
since Jonathan opened that up, I'll share a quick one.
Please.
I was in the Marine Corps at the time, and I was training for the All Marine Judo Championships, and I got the weekend wrong. And all of a sudden, it was this weekend, and I drove all night with a pregnant wife up to Washington, D.C. I walked in, I hadn't had any sleep, put on my judo gi. I was a brown belt at the time. And I went out on the mat, and I don't know what happened. I wasn't there. I had this intention, but who I was just gone. And when I woke up, I had beaten black belts and won the All Marine Corps Judo Championship. And it was just something else came through.
Wow. Thank you. What a great story. Any others before I move on? And there's no rush to move on. These stories are more important than anything I can say.
Michael has his hand up.
Sarah?
Oh, and Sarah too.
Okay. When you're talking about intention, are you trying to say that intention, once you have an intention, that it's going to go through regardless of any kind of adversity or counter forces or anything? Is this what you're trying to claim here?
It's not what I'm trying to claim. It's what a lot of philosophers are trying to claim. And yes, it will assist in bringing you things that will move you towards that intention. Doesn't mean you don't have to do anything. Certainly.
I mean, I'm just saying after a lifetime of complex projects with very strong intention behind them, I understand that there is something called mitigating factors. And there is such a thing as competition. And the idea that intention alone determines the outcome is a little bit too much for me to swallow.
All right. Well, you think about it.
I'm sorry. It just it doesn't wash. I mean, I think intention is powerful. I think it's powerful, and I think it's enormously influential in terms of gathering our spirit. But as the single determining factor, I can't buy it.
It's not a single determining factor. It's a driving factor that causes people to succeed rather than some kind of magic. I mean, the mountain climber who made the quote, I'm sure if you read the full book, he ran into blizzards, he ran into all kinds of issues, but his intention drove him to solve those problems.
I understand that, Paul, but I mean, I've spent too much time in the publishing business to believe for a second that intention alone determines the outcome.
Intention drives the outcome.
Whatever. What does that mean? That's just playing with words. Come on.
I keep waiting. I'm waiting for somebody to bring up, and I'm gonna. There are several of us in the group, Gordon and Harvey and a few others, who are great fans of Abraham and Abraham Hicks. And back in the 70s, when Jane Roberts wrote the book Seth Speaks, the first thing was, you create your own reality. You create your own reality. And everything, in my opinion, has sort of like blossomed from there. Be here now, as you know, everybody who read that is, you create it. It's up to you. And that ties so beautifully in with what you're saying. Unlike Michael, I go exactly the opposite. I'm like, yes, have the intention, make it happen. Yes, we can do it. Nothing can stop us now.
Yeah.
So that's all. Yay.
So I can tell you when I was, to answer Michael's question in more detail. So I used to lead these 3-day strategic offsites, team buildings mostly, with the CEO and the senior staff of Fortune 500 companies. So we would, I'd do my research. I knew about the company. I knew what they did. And I knew each of the people because I interviewed them prior to the retreat. But at some point, early in the first day, I could visualize where this group could end on the third day. I could absolutely visualize it. And it became an intention of mine to facilitate this group to get there. And of course, it didn't happen automatically, but the intention was so clear, it was like a guide for me to answer questions through the first 2 days until the group got to that place, which was oftentimes a transformational spot for that group. They did things and opened up to each other and had insights about their strategy that they never would have had before.
Yes.
So,
Hey, Paul, I think Sarah and Danielle had their hands up.
please, go ahead. Sarah?
Yes. I'm just wondering, in your opinion, do bad intentions work the same way?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. I was going to go into that a little later, but thanks for the question. Yeah, the bad intentions, especially when whole groups of people share those bad intentions, that has enormous power. And of course, not for good, right? Yes, they do. And so one of the things that's really important as a mastery circle and as a group or any group you're part of is to really carry positive intention into that situation. Around the world, and this article I talk about it, there's a lot of horrible things going on. And those bad intentions are manifesting. And if we don't work to change those intentions, things can get really bad, really bad. And there's been many examples of it. The Weimar Republic in Germany is probably one of them. It's kind of horrible, led to horror, the intention of Hitler and the Germans to rule the world, if you will. So someone else had their hand up with a question?
Yeah. Danielle did.
Yes.
And Thomas
Yes.
after that, I guess.
Oh, thank you very much for this, because I'm a testament to all this. All my life, actually, the world has unfolded to conspire to make my dreams come true. And ever since I was a child, actually, starting with the breath, I was very asthmatic, and my parents used to get me through my asthma attacks. This was before inhalers, by telling me mind over matter, like dream, you can breathe and keep breathing. And from there, it went on to my whole life dreams, complete with coming to lecture in California and living in Santa Monica. And I've also experienced what Sam said, where sometimes you need to learn a lesson. And I've actually experienced that in the last year, where I find it that actually before living certain dreams, you need to let go of certain others. So the universe kind of pushes you back and says, hey, you can have this, but you have to deal with this first, right? And then I've also experienced actually the power of a negative power of a group of people against me, and how powerful that can be. And I'm currently in process of trying to forgive that. So I think my question is, all through this, I've always done this unconsciously. I've never actually said, my intention is this and this is going to happen. So I think I'm really curious as to how can I harness the power of intention. I've always done it very unconsciously. And I'd like to learn how to do it more consciously, to be able to basically manage more, I don't know, to have more intention, conscious intention, rather than just dreaming and wishing.
It sounds like you're naturally good at it. So, but here's how I think it works. And I'd love to hear comments on this. Is like for me, it had been a dream or an intention, you know, to make businesses and leaders work better together, right? So it wasn't like came out of the blue. And it's something I have skill at to begin with, right? And so I think these intentions come, you know, from being still, being quiet, like Tim talked about meditation. And these things will come, but they're always, it's always something you can do, always something your psyche, your life history has already prepared you for. So you wouldn't, like if I had an intention to go back to play basketball, I'm 73, right? No matter how strong my intention was, I wouldn't be able to succeed out there on the basketball court where I used to play, right? No way. My knees were beginning to give out when I stopped playing basketball. So it comes to you. It's almost a gift from the Great Spirit. It's almost like, here's a person that has all these capabilities and this intention to make the world a better place.